Yesterday, I began us with a slide and a message that says we're trying to get this thing to work. We're trying to make a shift. We're trying to change our mindset from the notion our church, which belongs to Jesus, has a mission program or activity, where mission is one of all the many different activities we do, to understanding mission in a new way. Mission is everything the church is about, and it's God's mission into the world that has a church. See the difference? One is the church owns the mission. The church possesses this mission project, this mission activity. That's the first frame. The second is trying to say the mission of God, whatever God wants, the church belongs to that, and therefore must be used up in the service of that mission. That's a big shift, because the mission sort of serves the church. The church serves. This is radical stuff. I don't particularly like it. I'm not comfortable with it. I don't know how to do it. But what we're believing as we watch the culture change around us is that if the church doesn't get clear about its missional identity, it's not going to survive. God will raise up a new church to do the work needed. That's what I believe. God's going to have the mission done. The real question is, are we going to join in it or not? That's our choice. I mean, we could say, sorry, God, we really like the way we're doing church. This is great. And we're real comfortable. And we will be happy as we slowly decline and die. And you do your mission work somewhere else. That's actually happening in the Methodist Church. I have been to churches. I have actually set foot in buildings with people, and they say, we don't want to do that. Will you just, and they tell the bishop, will you just send us a chaplain who will be comfortable to us and preach a very warm, loving message and come visit us in the hospital and do our services when we die? That's actually happened. Do you believe me? I mean, I can't tell from your eyes if you're even awake. Do you believe me? This is true. There are churches out there that say, Lord, that's great you got a mission. We've got a church. But we can decide whether or not our churches are going to be that kind of church. And we believe, this team and our bishop and a whole bunch of folks in our conference believe that if we get missional and we understand this shift, that the mission doesn't belong to our church, but our church belongs to God's mission, new and different and crazy and amazing, miraculous things are going to happen. And we have no idea what they look like. That's what we believe, okay? So, the church does not have a mission. The mission of God has a church. The second thing is to move away from this question. What question drives what we do? Away from how do we get them where? Inside our walls. How do we get them in here to this dinner, to this service, to this Bible study? It's not we don't want it, we do want it. But if that's the first question we ask, everything we do is about the church. You see the difference? When I went to a church in 1990 that was just a shadow of its former self, just used to be 3,000 members. And by the time I got there, most of them were in their 70s and 80s, just 150 in worship in a big sanctuary. I mean, it was just awful. I walked in there and I got depressed. Like, why would anybody want to join this church? Why would anybody say, hey, I think I'll go to that church? You come in, you press, you hear a bad organ music, singing like this. Oh, God, our help in... No life, okay? And so I lived with that group and got to know them, and there were some wonderful people, so please don't hear this as criticism of them. But I realized as I got to know the church and its story, the only thing driving this church for growth was fear of dying. So our mission statement, whether it was written or not, was, come help us not die. That is an awful mission statement. Come help us not, come help me not feel bad. Is that a great way to start a relationship? James, be my friend, help me not feel bad. How does that feel as an invitation to a relationship? Your job is supposed to make me feel good. Y'all come in and help us not die. And we'll accept you as long as you become just like we are. And sing the hymns the same way. Look with a frown on Sunday morning. We'll accept you. That's what we're looking for. You see, that's not a mission. That's just survival anxiety. Survival anxiety is not a mission. A mission is when we say, we've got something God has blessed us with that we have to share with a broken world. That's what a mission is. It's about an identity that says, we are God's people, blessed and equipped in some way, and we're supposed to make a difference for the salvation of the world. So we're moving from how do we get them to come in and be just like us to keep what we like going. That's, first of all, that's very natural. I have those feelings. We all have those feelings. That's just not missional. That's what I'm trying to help us understand. And our shift is to the question, how do we begin a relationship, engage them with a notion of our faith and Christ's identity and love for them, where? Where they are. What does that mean? What burden does that put on me? I have to go. You know, I could sit in my den and say, oh, as soon as people come by, I'm going to witness to them. And I don't think I'll be very effective. You know, Jesus didn't say, come on, let's build. In fact, you know, we know the story on the Mount of Transfiguration. They wanted to build little tents to have a shrine that people could come to and visit. Ooh, we saw Moses and Elijah up here. Ooh, this is a sacred space. And what did Jesus say when they wanted to settle in and have a shrine? Come on back down the mountain. We got work to do. It's not about settling in and saying, okay, y'all come by and be nice. It's about new movement out. We don't know how to do this. Ken and I have been in at this for a while. We were not taught this in seminary, were we? No, we just, if you build it, they will come. That was what we believed back in the 70s and 80s. And, you know, just build a nice building. We would have the attractional church, offer a gym and a family life center. Everybody will come. And then what? Our church will grow? Right? So one thing we want to take away is the difference from attractional to missional. If we can just keep that in mind and bring that up in church conversations, we will have done some of our work. If you can just get other people to start asking the questions, is this attractional or is it missional? And if they say, what are you talking about? You can tell them what the difference is. Okay? 3 movements that are characteristic of a missional culture. These are the terms we spent a good bit of time with, the first 2 more than the last one. But we talked about vulnerability. Remember that? And we all said that was good. Right? I mean, it didn't feel good, but in principle, we're for it, right? All right. Vulnerability is a good thing. We talked about that. Failure is no fun, but it also can be redemptive. And then a lot of what was implied in the ways we talked about engaging communities is about listening. It's about first listen, first getting to know people. So these 3 words lead us, and this is the movement part. And again, this is my take. You can cross it all out or put your own on there. Vulnerability leads to both empathy and innovation. That's one of the movement principles in a missional thing. That is, if we acknowledge our vulnerability and know how to embrace it, we both have capacity now for empathy and a new source of creativity for innovation. That, I think, is a message we tried to affirm last night. The second point, both Stephen and Travis talked about failure, both in personal story, but also in our DNA. Failure is not the end. Failure leads to resurrection. So we believe that if we risk and try new things, something of new life will come out of it, even if all of them don't unfold the way we want it. I mean, Wesley was an utter failure in Georgia as a missionary, but it changed his life and prepared him for the warm heart experience that led to the awakening in England. So you don't know what's going to come out of an exercise. So this missional move means we don't take these steps sure of success. If we think we've got to have it all lined up so we're guaranteed it'll turn out the way we want, we're not doing missional. Missional, whatever it is risky. There's going to be a part of me that says, ooh, I'm scared of doing that. That could really fall flat. We could really blow it. We might lose some money. I mean, those are all real risks. And then finally, listening leads to relationships. That missional is ultimately about engaging people where they are in a relationship. And sometimes that takes a long time. This is long-term, it's organic, it's mysterious, it's relational. We've got to get that in our mind. This is about beginning relationships with people we don't know, who are different from us, who don't believe the same way, who don't dress the same way. And we start figuring out how God is already at work. If we do all this in order to get members, if that's our motive, we will fail to recognize resurrection in its biggest sense. So a lot of these relationships may indeed lead to victories and blessings, but they don't directly turn around and increase the numbers of our church. That's part of the risk.
What I'm saying is that missional is more focused on building God's kingdom than gaining members.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And in fact, what Bishop McAlilly likes to emphasize is the difference between membership, which is affiliation with a church, and discipleship, which is a way of living in the world. And the kingdom work is done by discipleship. It's also done by members. I'm not saying these are not mutually exclusive, but you're exactly right. The focus on membership is a misdirection. And we're going to move to an era when we're not so preoccupied with church membership. We're going to be looking at ways discipleship is being lived out, and we won't even fill out the number lists in the same way. But that's a while away. Relationship does. Yeah, and we're going to talk a lot about seeing God already out there. It's not like God's nowhere out there until I get there. God's already at work. God's transformation work is going to happen. The question is, how well do we join in it? So, good.